Okay, I've got 2 o'clock. William, you've got 2 o'clock, I suspect. You're good to go. You're muted though right now. It is 2 o'clock on the dot. I am Ron Cody. I am going to kick off the meeting, and William and I guess will tag team through this process today. But this meeting is really the result of a outcome of a dealer board meeting back in July, where we were asked to look at the dealer portal process that the dealer board has undertaken. Gosh, William, I guess since the end of last year, you started collecting requirements and working through this process. So what I wanted to do before we get too far into it is if we can take some sort of a role. David Duncan, I see you. Chris Mayer, I see you. I think Maurice Slaughter was supposed to also be on this call as one of the chairs. Maurice, are you on the call? Okay. William, were there other folks that we wanted to, I see staff and motor vehicle dealer board. I see yourself. I see a Phil Sharapel. Phil, are you there?
Yeah, he's with AISN. I see that as well.
Okay. And then Jennifer Wall.
Oh, yes, this is Jennifer Wally with Troutman Sanders.
Okay. Thanks, Jennifer. Is there anybody else on the call that I can't see for one reason or another? Okay. So I guess the only chair we're missing is Maurice Slaughter at this point.
And also Michael Bohr should be on this call as well.
Okay, I see Michael coming on now.
Just arrived, yes.
Okay. Michael, you can hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, and I see Ann came on from VADA.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I guess we're looking for
thanks,
someone
Ann.
from VIADA. They were invited as well. But that's fine. Okay.
Okay. Well, why don't we, William, why don't we go ahead and start? Because I know a lot has transpired since the dealer board meeting. When we met at the dealer board, William went through a fairly elaborate process of where we are with the dealer portal. Since that time, we've done a number of things which William will bring you up to date on, to include we met with the IT folks at DMV and have tried to gain a lot more insight into all the options and that we may have in front of us beyond potentially the 3 we were originally pursuing. So William, if you don't mind, if you can kind of update the team on kind of where we are, and I'll interject if you don't mind as needed.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Ron. Committee members and guests, it's nice seeing you all, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be part of this meeting. Since the last board meeting, and since then also we've had a talk with Ron Cody as the chair of the committee to bring him up to speed on a few things. John Saul and I, who is the IT manager for the dealer board, have spent a lot of time talking to different states and different organizations across the country about potential solutions in the dealer world that we could probably use for the licensing software. In the conversations, for the most part, we're asking them basic questions: who are they, where they're located, their solution, how they choose a solution, where is it working. And in addition to that, we talked to a couple of states, primarily the state of Tennessee and the state of Indiana. Tennessee is very interesting to us because Tennessee is the state so far that we've talked to that's most closely aligned with the processes we have here in Virginia. In other words, they license salespeople just as we do. The salespeople are attached to the dealership just like we are here. So they have the same problems that we deal with: the transfer from dealership to dealership, the originals, the renewals, all those things, maintain of office hours. So we're very, very similar in that regard. In those conversations, just to summarize things for the most part for you, we have found that the states that we've talked to so far, which has just been 2 states as far as the dealer licensing functioning, but other states as well have a COTS program they're using, a COTS solution they're using for licensing functions in most states. For example, here in Virginia, we have an agency called DPOR, and I don't have all the specifics, but DPOR deals with things such as cosmetology, barber's licensing, real estate licensing, lawyer's licensing, and they also have a I guess a COTS solution that's been modified to fit the needs of the licensing entity that they're using. Same thing holds true in Indiana, and same thing holds true in other places as we're discovering in our conversations. So this morning we had a conversation.
William,
go ahead, Ron.
William, if you don't mind me interjecting, just because some folks may not know, a COTS solution is really an application that has been developed that can be modified with some level of expertise in programming to fit the consumer or the end user's requirements.
That's correct. COTS stands for commercial off-the-shelf solution, or software rather. But you're right, it can be modified to meet the needs of the end user.
Okay. So we really had originally we had three things we were looking at. We were looking at a COTS vendor. We were looking at two other vendors that were going to build really from scratch what we needed. And we went out, and I think you contacted 12 or 15 different state agencies, and we found that 2 or 3 of them have been using some of these COTS type solutions for the last 2 or 3 years in the licensing function. And I think you found out a little bit more about what's going on at the state. So it's adding a new dimension instead of just looking at the 3 alternatives we originally had on the table by way of your presentation. We're kind of having the field expanded and learning more about people that have already potentially gone down this path.
Yes. Now, in addition to that, the board also directed us last meeting to get with the vendors that we proposed during the meeting and get more information and detail from them, which John and I did as well. We had conversations with the vendors and talked about their solutions. The board's biggest concerns were at the time, were we confident that the vendors' solutions, that they have a good understanding of the requirements that we were looking for, that we were seeking. And as we said in the board meeting, the requirements that vendor B and C, the proposals rather, that vendors B and C gave us was based off of the requirements developed by vendor A. But, and we discussed those further, and both vendors, for the most part, were pretty confident that they understood the requirements. They also understood that if they were to be selected to do the work, that the initial period, maybe the first 3 or 4 weeks of the process, would be to validate those processes since they were using somebody else's requirements. But they were pretty confident that they had them nailed down. And the vendor who was proposing the COTS solution has been given an opportunity now to get more information, because the board wanted to know who are they going to use as the provider of the software, had they done it before, and things of that nature. So now they're working on that as well. So I'm saying all this to say to you that from what we gathered so far, that there's an opportunity here in the near future where we may have demonstrations and demos from the various companies to show you the type of work that they can do and the type of solution they can bring to the table to address our dealer portal.
And William, the other thing with that kind of came out in our discussion with the DMV folks in Lana and her staff is because we really don't have an IT staff outside of what John does to support us, and John does a great job, but we really don't have a staff to provide ongoing maintenance of these applications. So it needs to truly be a turnkey solution that has some level of support on an ongoing basis to protect us from obsolescence and to provide any future changes we may need as things evolve with us and DMV and any other agency.
Absolutely, that's very critical for us. Like you said, John's the sole IT resource the agency has. He does an outstanding job for us on a day-to-day basis, and it would not be fair to him or to the agency to expect him to be able to maintain it and keep up a solution that we may end up purchasing. So definitely, the ability for the system, I guess some type of maintenance program of the system is critical to us getting this system. Absolutely.
A couple questions.
Okay.
Couple questions, if it's okay to cut in. One, off-the-shelf solutions are awesome. I always think that's the best idea if it works. But in my experience, they all require different levels of customization, and that can be anything from just making a front-end page that looks pretty to really kind of a lot of coding and development and back-end work that can be very expensive and require a lot of ongoing maintenance. So as you've evaluated the off-the-shelf solutions, have you gotten some estimates on how much customization is required and the cost of it and what the ongoing maintenance would be? That's my first question. Two is, have we considered adding a tech resource in-house to deal with this? Again, this is from personal experience, but when we've added some tech features over time and we relied on external parties to maintain, and what we found 100% of the time is to build into the budget, that additional resource that can handle it full time, because it will be an ongoing daily tech issue on in terms of maintaining and managing issues and requiring a tweak because dealers aren't comfortable with something we've done, and these ongoing changes when you're using an outsourced vendor, they're just clunky, they take longer, they're expensive. You think of every change as a cost versus having a built-in cost of a resource that can help you through all that, where you're not evaluating the cost of everything because you already have a resource and you're really pushing more towards creating the best solution for your needs. So,
Mr. Boyle, I'm gonna try to answer your questions. If I forget part of it, please feel free to remind me of the part that I forgot. Your first question dealing with the evaluation, I don't think we're going to be evaluating like that. I think what we're doing right now is trying to identify, I guess, what the landscape looks like, what the options are. And I'm sure there's some type of process we will have to go through to get to where you're talking about, where we can evaluate what they bring to the table. And I don't think we have the expertise at the dealer board to do that. So we're going to probably need some help to do that from our partners across the street with DMV and others. So I don't know if it's going to be some type of RFI process, or depending on what I guess the demos show us, it might not be. I'm not sure, but I don't think we've done any evaluations to that degree. And as far as the in-house support to help us with this, at the time we decide what direction I guess we're going in, or maybe prior to that, we can look at that as far as budget-wise, because we can hire a part-time person to do that, but as they go through an approval process, particularly now that we're in a budget freeze right now. So, but once we identify what we're going to do and what that may require, we can take the appropriate steps at that time to make it happen.
got it. Thank you.
And Michael, we've learned a lot more about the other alternatives that are out there as far as even the billing side. In other words, paying a one-time charge for a solution or paying an annual agreement for some level of support along with the solution. So, as I kind of said on the onset of this discussion, is that, what we thought we were coming into was trying to pick one of three vendors. Well, we have found out a lot more. There's some other solutions out there where we've got to go back, make sure we got the requirements nailed down, meet with those vendors at some point, and then, do demonstrations and et cetera, and see, William, I think what ends up being our best fit.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Okay. Any other comments or questions at this point? So William, as far as a path forward right now, can you kind of define that for the team here and what to expect over the next week or two? Well,
I had originally set up weekly meetings because it's easier to schedule the meetings and to cancel them versus trying to schedule them at the last minute. But we also schedule those meetings not knowing how this thing will fall out. Now that we're involved in conversations with various people, and so far they all have graciously have been willing to give us some type of demo. I'm thinking that maybe what we can do now is schedule future meetings with this committee so that you can see the demos as well and ask questions that you may have. Because as board members, it's imperative that you, of course, feel very comfortable with the decision that you're about to sign off on in terms of us getting such a system and authorizing us to go ahead and pay for the system. But also as users of the system, you will have some input as well and some things you might want to see and that the vendors or the demos can answer on your behalf. So I think that would be one thing definitely going forward. Also, this process by nature is going to appear to be a little bit slower, but a little bit more detailed going forward. So in other words, where we came into this whole thing last month thinking we'll have somebody on board to build a system within the next couple of months, it might be 4 or 5 months before we even decide the process, and at that point, which vehicle we're going to take to get to the end road. So, but at the same time, though, we do want to make sure that we do, I guess, a thorough job of looking at what our options are and finding the best fit for what we need here in Virginia.
So, William, I know originally our requirements and specifications for the system were developed by one of the vendors we were working with,
Yes.
one of the folks that we're going to build from scratch. We have now found a couple other COT solutions that may have potential fit. Do we feel comfortable that the documents that we have defining what we're looking for are adequate to go to the next step with these folks and be able to kind of, as Michael was saying, assess their relative fit and move to that, quote, demo phase if in fact it's practical?
Well, in talking to my IT resource, we're very confident that the requirements in place are solid. Now, as you talk to other people and learn of things that they're doing, there's some things we didn't think of, but at the same time, there's some things, though, that our law might not allow right now, or that responsibility may lie with another agency. So, but for the most part, we're pretty confident that we have 90–95% of the requirements in place. There might be some other things we might see, but we can always adjust that as we go along.
Okay. So next step is additional communication with some of these vendors
Yes.
and COTS providers.
Mhm.
And then you'll update the board or this group on
The
kind of
committee.
our next meeting when it makes sense to meet again.
Yes.
Kind of regroup around the options we have in front of us and develop a path forward.
Yes, I think I would think probably versus doing what we're doing now. I mean, now we're catching up. You catching up, you guys, to find out what's been going on since the last meeting, in which we brought you up to speed. And I think the next logical step for us would be to actually see some of the demonstrations that some of these vendors are willing to put on to show you their solution or their possible solution or what they're capable of doing.
William, who's the IT resource that you currently have?
His name is John Saul.
Is he on this call? Like, does he?
Yes, he's on the call, but he's with the rest of the group in the conference room. He's on the call though.
Okay. I just, and also, is it appropriate if I brought our CTO to kind of sit in on these meetings? Because from a business perspective, I can chime in, but it might be helpful just if he's listening to provide some more kind of tech-based guidance.
Mr. Board, this is a public meeting. No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Chris, David, any questions?
No, I'm good. I understand, and I'm looking forward to seeing what people have to offer for us.
Okay. Anybody else on the call have any other questions we could address at this point? Okay. William, then I think what we'll expect is to hear back from you or myself about the next step forward, see where we go with these COT solutions, find out what else we hear from other state agencies around the country in case we, uncover something else that potentially fits, and kind of keep moving this ball forward.
Okay.
And I think this is the same group that I think will meet with me next week on the licensing
Yes.
meeting that we had to cancel this week due to the weather. So we need to get that one back on board because that's a critical one we're trying to push through right now and make some changes. So, and I guess effective on licensing, effective August 1st, we went with the 2 providers as well for background checks, right?
Yes, and for everybody to understand, there are more people trying to go through the process now to become an authorized vendor. We're working on them, but that's the list right now, 2 people. We will update that list each time we add a new vendor to it. So right
Okay,
now,
we'll talk about all that
right
next week in licensing on Tuesday. I think Tuesday at 2 o'clock.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
Mr. Cody, one more thing. The demonstrations are not only by the COTS people, but by those who also can build from scratch. So
Yes.
the demonstrations about all potential vendors.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, we will stand adjourned for today, and I will see most of you all next Tuesday. But again, expect more to come on the whole dealer portal and where we can take this. Thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.
Right,
All right,
Take
take care, Mr. Cody. See you later, William.
Okay.
Yeah.